Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Scrutiny Programme Committee. We start off with apologies. I've had apologies from Wendy Lewis and Victoria Holland. And for the benefit of those who've joined online, I'm going to ask those in the room to introduce themselves. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to move all the way around that way. So I'm Councillor Peter Black. I'm the chair of the committee.
Good afternoon. My name is Bruce Madhar from the Council's Scrutiny team.
At the end.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Jeremy Davis, Group Leader for Parks and Cleansing.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Frances Williams, Waste Enforcement Team Leader.
Matthew.
Good afternoon. I'm Matthew Perkins, Group Leader for Waste Management.
And Rachel.
That went red button, sorry. New girl error. Rachel Jarrett, Head of Building Services and Waste.
Good afternoon, everyone. Councillor Cyril Anderson, Cabinet Member for Waste Management and Parks.
Councillor Adam Davis, Member for Fluker Ward.
Councillor Sue Jones, Member for Gowerton Ward.
Good afternoon, Samantha Jenkins, Democratic Services Officer.
Hello, I'm Adrian Jeremiah from the Council's Legal Department.
Thank you, everybody. So we're going to move on to item 2, which is disclosure of personal and prejudicial interest. Does anybody have anything they wish to disclose? All right, Matthew.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was agenda item 8. As an employee in East Petawba Council, I'm responsible for reporting on the authority's fly tipping quarterly and annual reports to Fly Tipping Action Wales.
Okay, thank you. That's personal interest. Can you fill a form in and email it to, please? Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to item 3, prohibition of whip votes and declaration of party whips. We've got any of those, and then that's going to move on to the minutes of the last meeting, which are on page 1. Just to see if there's a correct record. There's a correction, Sue, on page 1, is it? You gave your apologies, Sue Jones, which should have been down as an apology. So any other amendments on page 1 or page 2, page 3, page 4 and page 5? Can I take it members are content that that is a correct record? Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Okay, so let's move on to item 5, public question time. We have no public questions. Oh, Peter? Okay, we're going to co-opt you next item, but come on. Come on, go a seat, go a seat. Oh, I assume so. Okay. Okay, no public question. Let's move on to item 6 then, which is the cooperative member. As you know, a report has been circulated as Peter May is no longer a member of the committee due to the fact that there's been changes to the balance of the groups. He has requested that he be co-opted onto the scrutiny committee. So I'm just going to ask straightforward if members are content with that. I think best thing, we just do a roll call. Can we do a roll call of members?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and just say yes or no, if that's okay. That's the quickest way of doing that. Yeah.
Councillor Black.
4.
Councillor Adam Davis.
4.
Councillor Holland is missing. Councillor Holly.
You're muted, Chris.
I know, yes. I tried to find a button.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, Matthew Jones.
Yeah, 4.
Councillor Sue Jones.
4.
Councillor Pritchard.
4. Apologies as well. I'll keep my camera off, but my signal is drifting in and out.
Thank you. Councillor Mike White. I don't think he's here. No.
Okay.
Oh, that's.
Is Mike there? No, yes.
Someone just asked me let in. I'll show you that.
Yeah. Okay. So I think is that everyone?
Yes, Chair. That's
okay.
everyone.
So that's been agreed then. So Peter, you want to come and take your place at the chair at this table? Okay, and you can raise your question on the item which you wish to raise it under. Okay. Right, let's move on to item 7 then, which is an update on the recycling waste collection service. Can I welcome the cast of thousands from that service who have come to talk to this item? And we have Councillor Cyril Anderson, the Cabinet Member, Rachel Jowett, Head of Building Services and Waste, Matthew Perkins, the Group Leader on Waste, and Jeremy Davis, Group Leader on Parks, and Francis Williams as well, from the Team Leader for Enforcement. Sil, do you want to introduce this report or say any few words?
Yeah, thank you, Chair and Committee, for inviting us this afternoon. Secondly, I'd like to thank officers for putting this report together. I'm sure, Chair, that the committee have read all the reports. Do you want me to go through a summary, or can we go straight into questions?
It's up to you. I don't want you to read the report out, but so if you can sum up in 2 or 3 points, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll go to questions.
Yeah.
And anything you want to highlight?
Yeah, operational challenges and improvements. The service, as you know, Chair, has faced persistent challenges, notably vehicle breakdowns, staffing shortages between July and August of 2024. Multiple rounds of waste collections were delayed due to both ad hoc vehicles issues and teething problems with newly introduced vehicles. However, these issues have since been resolved, and the investment in the fleet replacement has ensured sufficient vehicle availability for daily operations. Staffing has also been a critical concern. The service previously reported 12 vacancies and plans to recruit 20 additional staff. Recent updates confirm that all 16 driver positions will be filled by mid-September, with a recruitment underway for a 44 further carrier posts. A live pool of appointed candidates and is being maintained to reduce reliance on agency staff and improve services continuity. I'll end it there, Chair, and any questions I'll leave to my officers.
That's fine. Well, you can answer some as well if you wish. They're all good. Fancy answering some questions, feel free. Okay, so the first question I've got is, have all the driver and carrier vacancies now been filled? And is the service fully staffed? Rachel's going to answer this issue.
The answer is not fully. So the recruitment process was initiated. We had 16, to just take members back, we did a big exercise with the team where we looked at the staffing model in terms of how many people we need every single day. And then from a formula, looked at how much leave people get, how much time they need for training, building in an element of a reasonable sickness rate. And then from that, we're able to do, so every given day, for the year, we need this number of staff to carry that fluctuation. So from that led to the report through the system to bring in additional drivers and additional carriers. It was 16 drivers. The majority, we are waiting for 2, I believe, who start next week. And they're ones from externals who had to serve notice and go through. So next week, drivers, we will be fully staffed. Carriers, this is where we had hundreds of applications for 44 posts. We did focus on getting the drivers through the system first, particularly when we've got some of our own carriers who were applying for drivers positions because they were qualified HGV. So we wanted that to go to make sure then we were then fulfilling their post. So there was a sequence to it. That is diarised for those interviews to take place end of September, beginning of October. Obviously, we've got a pool of existing operatives from agencies who have, and they will be prioritised first if they have applied to go through the system. And then we're optimistic then that those posts will be filled. I think for the 44 posts, I believe we're looking to interview over
By the end of September.
But how many? About 100? Is it about 100?
Yeah.
We're looking to interview about 100 people of applicants of over 250.
For 44 places?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a huge undertaking from the staff, but we will get there. And our plan is that the service will have a full cohort of staff well in time to be trained up and ready for Christmas, which we know is the next pressure point, which I'm sure you probably may have.
I think we all know that, yes. Okay. Chris Holly, got a supplementary to this?
Yeah. Can I ask? Thanks, Rachel, for that report. There's a lot of applications for the number of jobs, isn't there? But what I'd like to know is, what is a typical training period for new staff, and what's the timescale for them all to be fully operational?
I'll pick up, councillor, if that's okay. So typically all of our staff sort of, historically come in via the agency, at least short-termers. So they normally have a sort of a day one induction, and then sort of start work for us. When we take full-timers on, the council induction is more robust and sort of takes them more through some of our policies, procedures, etc. So that typically probably takes 2 or 3 days, and then after that, it's more sort of coaching and mentoring them as well. So just we told them the expectations we want and the quality work we expect, and it's it's monitoring, measuring, supporting, and coaching. So short answer is, agency person is probably 1 day, council worker is probably 3 days, plus more investment later on to keep on top and support as needed.
Okay, Chris. Okay, so moving on then onto the vehicles.
Yes, thanks.
Are they all now working as expected? And are you confident that breakdowns will not disrupt collections, especially as we approach winter?
Yeah, thanks, Jay. So I had a quick chat with our fleet manager sort of earlier on this week, and what he said is we'd identified a couple of issues during the warranty period, and it was still sort of just finishing off the last couple of pieces there. After that, there's no sort of major planned works. The fleets, we haven't got any more issues with them. They're back over to our sort of ownership and maintenance. So unless there's anything completely unforeseen, we've got a new fleet in, sort of, all being maintained and working as expected. So unless there's something, completely unexpected, we've got a new bunch of vehicles and they should be reliable.
Are all these vehicles diesel or some electric?
We do have a mix and match. We've got a couple of electrics, but substantially diesel, just on the basis that with 26 tons of heavy refuse, there are a couple of councils who sort of dip their toes in the water, if you like, are trying to get low emission vehicles. But in reality, they're probably having more teeth in trouble than the diesels. So the technology is still pretty new, and those who jumped in with 1 foot, if not both feet, are having more issues with reliability and performance currently.
I'm just wondering how the electrics perform in cold weather.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So generally they probably couldn't double shift, but they can go out and do a full round with heaters on, and crews haven't reported any issues with them.
Okay, fair enough.
Just on that one, sorry, Chair, just to come in, I just think we've also, to boost the resilience, hired in 2 additional spares into the fleet.
Right.
We had spares built into it, but what we wanted to ensure again was that resilience within the service, and that just gives us again a bit more backup should the unforeseen. I do expect breakdowns to happen, just like we have with our own vehicles, with all the servicing that we have to do. But what we need to have, and what I hope we've now built into it, is that greater resilience of the spares of vehicles. And we've got what we're calling the mop-up crews who are working later, and also how we've changed the working within the team. So like the refuse team working together to enable us to ensure that the stream gets completed on the day before they come back to the yard. So there's a whole load of things have gone on to ensure, that we are seeing that higher, what I'm calling round collection success rate. You're not getting the coloured in maps every day as members, which you were getting to say which parts of the round haven't been completed. So that's one of our benchmarks, which hopefully, fingers crossed, the performance we're currently experiencing is where I expect it and want it to maintain.
We lease these vehicles, do we?
We do lease all our vehicles, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Lyndon Jones.
Great, thanks, Chair. In my experience, there are still ongoing issues with non-collections, particularly on Fridays, which involves my particular ward as it happens. What is being done to address these persistent collection problems, and is the problem being resolved across the county?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Jones. And the answer is, do I expect every single day for there to be, I expect there to be 100% collections around completion success rate. I understand there may be the occasional ad hoc missed collections where there might just be a lack of communication, or somebody put the waste out at the wrong time, or they expect the bin lorry to come round at 12 and it's gone round at 9. But where we are seeing repeated mists, I have been working with the operations team where we're collating these lists to then try and find out what is the root cause of them. And then put in place. So even this week, we know that we're going to one particular ward, the collections team leader, to look at the issues that we are experiencing. This is where I'm being really honest with members. The systems that we've got in place don't give us that in an intelligent way. It's very much like reactive. A complaint comes in and it's just dealt with and not aggregated. It doesn't produce those good reports to say, well, did you know in Bonnymine, for example, over the last 5 weeks, there's been X number of reports from different addresses. This is where, we might come on to the systems we're looking at the future. But we are well aware that members, your hotspots areas, and I've met with some members where these repeated missed collections seems to have been happened. And what we now need to do is get onto this. I do think it's been exacerbated the last year. And, I give my credit to the agency crews and thanks to them. But if we've got crews constantly changing, they're not going to get the local knowledge. And it's really important that that is built up. We don't have in-cab technology yet, which says number 53 and 54, it's round the corner. This is your round, carry on. It is very much based on, just what is the knowledge and given to the crews on a given day. And if it's on bits of paper, that's easily lost. Particularly repeated assisted collections are a big bugbear because we're letting down our most vulnerable. And again, we need to keep on ensuring. So with having a more stable crew, we'll have better intelligence, and therefore some of that will really help. We're committed to working with the members and getting on top of these lists of repeated miss. And I suppose my plea to you is that if you've got these areas, let us know and we will arrange site visits with the collections team leader to get these sorted, and ensure the appropriate instructions are being given to the crew so they know what needs to happen in what patch. And then thirdly, in the long term, when we get the in-cab technology, some of that local intelligence should be avoided to have that, and we'll also have better data on miscollections as well. So I'm hoping that whole suite of activities over the forthcoming period will really help to reduce those numbers.
You've obviously built more resilience into the system. Is that resilience going to improve mop-up operations? Will you be able to do those faster, or is you still roughly the same as you were before?
So this mop-ups system is quite new, isn't it? It was implemented this year. We do not intend standing it down until we've got absolute assurance that we're really on top of things. Particularly, they're going to be invaluable over Christmas because we get extra tonnage. And also they've been, it allows us to be able to, rather than get the crews like you go back out over there, they can carry on with their day job, and the mop-up crews can then go and deal with the miscollections and get on top of it quicker is the intent. So we don't intend standing it down.
Okay, Matthew, supplementary.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want a little bit of clarity around Councillor Jones's question with regards to, is Councillor Jones saying that he's still getting problems as in whole streets and areas being missed, or are they just ad hoc areas? Because he did mention about borough-wide failings, and I got to be honest, on the Monday and Wednesday collections that we've had, I'd say definitely in the last 3 months, there's been a massive improvement. on the collection success rate. Yes, we do get a couple of ad hoc miscollections with assisted collections, but I've got to say I've seen a definite improvement in the collection rate. So I just wanted sorry, I'm not questioning Councillor Jones. I just wanted clarity to see if he was still having issues with whole streets or just individuals. It's just interesting for the whole scrutiny, that's all.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can answer that. Yeah, last Friday we had situations where we had a few streets, yeah. But it is getting better because it was almost every week we weren't getting it. So it is getting better. And I've certainly, met the officers to discuss that. But certainly, last Friday was a fitting example. So with this coming up in scrutiny today, I wanted to raise it.
Okay, Sue Jones, you want to give supplementary?
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered how you dealt with indiscriminate parking, preventing lorries getting into some
Oh, God,
streets.
yeah.
Yeah, how the heck do you manage that?
Yeah, thanks. I can perhaps pick up both things in one go here. So, unfortunately, Councillor Jones, there was, I think the last time we had probably, I wouldn't say catastrophic, but, it's a significant vehicle issue. We had 2 breakdowns on the same day, and it happened to be a Friday, and we didn't actually get rounds completed that day. So it meant actually the mop-up resource we had just on that day couldn't get everywhere all in one go. So we did, I'm not quite sure it was one of yours or your neighbouring councillors' areas left down, but we did actually leave stuff and it happened to be a Friday. The other things we are picking up then are things like access issues. So again, neighbouring councillor down in Gower sort of phoned in a couple of streets we couldn't get access to, and it was just parking really poorly blocking sort of half an estate effectively. Our process for that is we have, as a council, have no powers to enforce proper parking unless there are double yellow lines there. What we've got to do is try and encourage PCSOs to come along, and they've got powers to enforce appropriate parking. There are times we can't always get PCSOs to come at our request. So we generally engage with a local member who's probably got a better relationship with PCSOs to be able to get them to sort of say, these are some of my ward problems and hotspots, if you like, and we can go off and work in those areas. And we tend to find within a couple of collections, we go through a process of letter dropping and saying, look, I'm sure as residents you want to have your waste collected the day we turn up, and it's quite annoying for us the day we turn up to have to face, to come back to miscollection things when in reality we were there, we tried doing it, we physically couldn't get in, if you like. So we tend to go through a process of letter dropping, that improves things. If that doesn't work, we work with the ward members to sort of see what they can do in terms of engagement with PCSOs. To be honest, 9.5 out of 10 times that's solved the problem for us, and we haven't had to go any further. But yeah,
of course, so yeah.
I had an issue last week in Gowerton with one of the residents on a particular street, and it wasn't the residents in the street that were blocking it. It was from a different area, and they were up in arms because these people are pot blocking their street off. So I just wondered how you do whether, there is a way.
Yeah, so if there's a specific area, just sort of message me separately. Well, what I'd suggest is we just ask the PCSO to be there at 9 o'clock on collection day, and as opposed to targeting residents, he can target the cars that are obstructing it. So
it's mainly white vans.
Yeah, and we get similar things parking near schools or other office blocks, if you like. So it's not problems we haven't experienced elsewhere and solved elsewhere. Just things like that can get lost in the noise of of vehicles stand down or other bits and pieces without knowing the root cause of each of the incidents, if you like.
Councillor get the blame, and it's not their fault.
I've had to use my community budget to put yellow lines in some stages where there've been issues there, which has helped a lot. So if you can't sort that way, I've sorted it that way. Yeah.
I think, sorry, just going to come on to that. In the long run, if we get an area where we just cannot solve the problem, clearly for the most efficient sort of like collection system, you want the big vehicle to collect as many streets as possible, because it's the most cost effective and efficient way to do it. But there might have to be a time when the service says, you know what, we just can't crack this one, and an alternative solution has to be put in place. But that comes right at the end of everything that Matt has talked about, because that will require more vehicles, more staff, more cost. But we also know it is our duty to collect the waste. We've asked them to do it in a particular way. And also, I get the residents get frustrated because they go, well, you've done our black bag on food waste, but you haven't done our recycling. But that's assuming the vehicles come round at the same time. And within 1 or 2 hours, even half an hour, the situation can change.
Or even the same route, because they don't always take the same route, do they?
You know, well, no, because sometimes there might be diversions or road
Well-
flow, so our crews won't always use the
I
same.
might find the green bag comes down and the red black bag goes up in my streets.
Yeah, again, that's just down to the routing.
Yeah, exactly,
Because it'll
yeah.
be based on tonnage.
Yeah.
So I think there is something about us looking in the long term at the right vehicle for the right street being built into our design as well, but knowing that that will come at a cost.
Okay. Right, Matthew, you've got the supplementary?
Yes, please. Thanks, Chair. I just want to know, at what point then, when the crew comes across an area or a street that they can't collect due to parking issues, is that fed back to the area team leader? Do they try and return on the same day if they're still in the area? And if we can't return the same day, what's the policy afterwards? And it would be nice if we are going to leave any sort of street down, waste down, because of a reason. It would be nice to have the reason for parking issues that we can feed back to local residents, just to give them the heads up of the reasoning why the street has been left.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. So we've got a sort of protocol where crews are expected to make sort of 2 attempts to gain access. So, generally things like before and after school runs or before and after people go to work. Just because the street's not accessible at 8 o'clock doesn't mean it's still going to be the same at 9:30 or 10 o'clock. So they're expected to make two attempts to get in there. Thereafter, if they can't make an attempt, one of the things we've recently set up is inform the supervisors in office that they can't gain access. So if we can, we would try to get one of the sort of narrow access mop-up crews in there to still try and complete on the same day. But like Rachel mentioned, that's almost a stick in plaster, if you like. That's an inefficient use of resource to go off and get something which should be able to collect on an efficient 26-ton vehicle. So we started getting that information with a view that actually we can do a better job in informing people. So coming on to different technologies, there are sort of, depending on what the council does with its Swansea account and I suppose resident contact system, there are things out there where you can say we haven't been able to get into Fake Street today. If we happen to have all Fake Street's email addresses or phone numbers, you can message them to say collections haven't completed today. We'll be back, tomorrow, or we'll be back in next week or next fortnight, whatever the policy is, if you like. We don't have that technology yet, so we haven't had to set the policy. But but ultimately that's probably direction of travel. But at the moment, information gathering with the view that we can, with the resources we got, we put out better information to members and residents.
Okay, Matthew?
Can I just go back on that just for a minute? Sorry, Matt. Matt is correct on what he's saying, but we've also instructed our operators, if they do tend to miss a street and they can't get back there, to inform our supervisors by 11 o'clock, so that we have got time then to have our missed collection boys at present to go out and collect the missed collection.
Okay. I think it'd be useful for the supervisors also inform the local councillor as well, so they will inevitably get inquiries, won't they? Yeah. Okay.
So, sorry, Chair. Just to clarify then, I appreciate Matthew mentioned about things that we could do in the future. Obviously, I'm interested about things we can do now as well, with regards to what the policy is. If we can't collect one day, have we got a time frame that we definitely go back the next day? Because as Councillor Jones mentioned earlier, sometimes it's not necessarily vehicles from that street that are to blame either, or residents. So it seems slightly unfair if we're going to make them wait an extended period of time.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's pretty much as we sort of say is inform residents it'll be as soon as possible, which in 9 times out of 10 cases is within 24 hours. You know, it's so yeah, it's basically 24-hour return. We unless there's exceptional circumstances, we give ourselves a bit of wriggle room, if you like, and say as soon as possible. But it's 24 hours is our next working day. The only trouble is occasionally you find the white vans parked next to a building site, and the parking is no different the next day, which is part of the reason we don't say 24 hours. Is quite there are occasions when we have exactly the same vehicle issues on a Wednesday that we had on a Tuesday. So wouldn't want to promise a Wednesday collection when we physically can't get in any sooner anyway.
Okay. Okay, should we move on then? In terms of very interested in your paragraph on in-cab technology and performance monitoring systems, just wondering what the cost of that is and how is it working? I understand you've also got it in the commercial waste already. How does it work with that, and are the trade unions supportive of this technology?
Yeah, so if I do commercial first, yeah, it's working really well. Sort of, in fairness, the product does what the sales rep sort of told us it would, which is quite nice. Sort of borne out by sort of, we had quite a lot of references from other councils, but they weren't quite working in the same way Swansea were. It was English councils without necessarily having Welsh government's workplace recycling separation rules. So it's doing exactly what we wanted. There was an initial bit of transition where we had to sort of take the crew and support the crews through moving from paperwork systems to technology. But ultimately, within a couple of weeks, they were all using a different method of data collection than previously. So yeah, it's worked. In the case of engaging with the trade unions, we in commercial sense, we're bringing in a system to change with the law as well. So it sort of helped in some ways. The Welsh government had brought in a new code of practice, which had prompted us to have to do it. But I think, sort of from our point of view, moving the domestics over, the commercial lot of and trade unions have seen what it does. It's not scary. It's different, but not scary. I can't imagine we'd have any issue. I think it would. Probably our question is just the implementation plan, really, and just making sure we're giving crews decent support as they go from one system to another. So rather than necessarily going for one big bang, I think when it comes to actually implementing, we probably just want to do it in a more controlled fashion and perhaps do it waste stream by waste stream, really, just so we can manage the process and support people to make sure they're all using devices correctly. In terms of purchase price, probably can't say that out loud, just on a basis it might be commercially sensitive, if you like.
You can write us confidential on that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think, did you say it was a 12 to 18 months rolling period? Around that period.
Yeah. So it's a process of sort of procuring, designing it from a back office point of view, and then actually just sort of the rollout. So without boring you with the details, there's a couple of ways you can go about it. You can either put the devices in the cab and then almost getting the device to track your vehicle, so you know which street it's collecting, or you can spend time uploading the map and then just leaving the crews polish it. But ultimately, there's quite a lot of sort of system stuff to be done in the first place. Loading assisteds on, making sure they're on the right rounds effectively, so that the day you go live, you're going live and not having as few issues as possible.
Okay, Peter.
Products like these often come with like an ongoing license fee. Is that, I know you might not be able to say exactly how much it is, but is it sustainable and reasonable in your view going forward in maintaining the system?
In short answer, yes. So we've already got it in the commercial setting, and ultimately, yeah, the license fee is affordable and sustainable. So yes.
Okay. Okay, let's move on. Mike White, question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would like to touch on really the role regarding supervisors. can you explain to the committee what is the role of the supervisors in ensuring rounds are completed and assisted collections are not missed? Because I understand supervisors would probably be responsible for certain areas, certain rounds on the days of collections, and if they are actually out there on the ground, making sure that rounds are perhaps being collected, and also that there's no sort of problems for the collection teams. So if you can perhaps let us know if you feel like the systems with the supervisors is working actually effectively.
Yeah, so to answer your question, Councillor, the supervisors' sort of jobs have, I suppose, evolved as we've gone through the sort of service changes over the last sort of 12, 24 months. So to answer your question in summary, their job is to do everything required to keep get the collection teams out there and make sure all collections are completed on the day. And what we've done is we've added some new tasks to their workload. So are they, are they doing everything that's needed? I think they're probably stretched at the moment. So just sort of some of the notifications we were talking about earlier, with and messages about sort of not being able to access. That's a new task which wasn't necessarily being done 12 months ago, if you like. So so are they supposed to be out there checking assisteds are completed and rounds are completed? Yes. Are they supposed to be sending information out to members to say when we've had issues? We are now asking them to, so yes. Do they necessarily have time in their day to do all of it? Not without something giving somewhere. So as well as looking at sort of the collection resource required to make sure the service is robust, we are also looking at sort of the supervision resource to make sure that sort of that's robust and the service is doing everything that members want it to do, if you like.
Can interject over that, and really appreciate the team. I've introduced some new things, they've taken them on. It's been different to what they were doing before, and they've really adapted to it. But the ask of the service now is so much greater than it when it was just a black bag service. It's far more complicated, and we need to recognise that. And it's really important for me that, as well as that, the collections are completed, they're done properly, they're done safely, containers are returned, neatly. All of that requires monitoring and training and just ensuring that we've got all of that data. So when we build all of that into the mix, take into account that over time, if we've got access issues, we need to keep rounds up to date. Assisted collections will change 1 or 2 a week, if not more. Some drop in, some drop off. Keeping all of that system up to date is a task in itself. And is the team resourced for it now? The answer is no. Do we have an investment plan for the service? Yes, we do. And we're literally going through that at the moment to bring in additional resources to support that side of the business, to enable our frontline to do what they need to do. So I do think that over the next, with the transition of the in-cap technology in the systems, we're going to see an evolution of the role of the supervisors over the next coming of years as well. So it's, again, whole system change.
Okay, Mike.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So have you still got the system where the crews have obviously actually got a mobile phone and they have actually got the contact to their area supervisor, so if there are issues out there, they can contact them straight away and vice versa?
Yeah, Councillor, we crews are sort of given mobile phones and they can ring the supervisor. So we've got a supervisor who looks after an area or a ward or not just necessarily a waste stream. Just we feel it sort of suits us better, really. That sort of we got one person who knows what the issues are in fake street, rather than necessarily having sort of 3 or 4 people all knowing something about the issue. You've got one person who can just get in, deal with the sort of the issue, address residents and address crews. So yes, the communication sort of process, by mobile phones, if there are issues, does still exist.
Okay. Well, I think we better gloss over the treatment of containers and a number of complaints about that, and move on to assisted collections. Sue.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered what the service does to support vulnerable residents, particularly dementia people who are struggling with recycling.
Matthew?
Yeah, so I think we've got a couple of sort of offers or policies which sort of can help out. So, we've got an assisted collection service, which really is for residents who can't get bags down to the curbside by themselves. Applies for, sort of non-recyclable waste and recyclable items. And then I suppose the other bits that sort of policies which help or hinder are the keep recyclable out policy at the curbside. And that particular one is designed to try and get residents to recycle as much as possible, or anything that can be recycled at the curbside, do so. That policy's got an exemption in it, so those who aren't able to recycle fully aren't required to do so. So effectively, as we go through engagement process on that policy, if it becomes apparent that resident can't recycle rather than won't recycle, we just say thank you very much for all the efforts you're making, and then don't expect any more. So stop inspecting, stop stop trying to enforce that particular policy.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I come back? I've had a suggestion from a care firm on how to maybe address some of the issues that recycling can be done for these dementia, particularly dementia patients. So maybe I will email you with that information. Thank you.
Okay. Mary Jones.
Thank you. I think you've answered this earlier on in your introduction, and it's are crews properly informed about which properties require assisted collection, and is staff turnover or the use of agency staff affecting this? To be fair, I have met with Rachel and Rebecca over an issue, and also about people not being able to access certain areas to collect, but in our case there was a caravan parked, not actually cars, which caused a massive problem for residents. But the assisted collections are hit and miss, as you've agreed. But are we looking now to, as you said, train the staff better so that they know exactly? Because it is very upsetting for the people that do require this service, and they just feel they're being left out all the time. Thank you.
No, if I'm honest, no, the transient or the not fixed workforce, I don't think has helped the matter. So I'm hoping, it is still a paper-based system issued out on the day. We know that's not ideal, but with, particularly, drivers are responsible for ensuring everything is done on their working day for their crew, that with the consistency of the teams we're going to be having, that will improve things to a certain degree. And then secondly, in a year or two's time with the in-cab technology, it will literally be, this resident lives here, it's in a box behind the wall, would be the level of information that would be contained in a system, talking to you just like a sat-nav does. So there would then be no excuse. So in the short term, there's still an element of human error built into the system moving forward, but hopefully far less than what we've seen given the nature of the workforce we've had up until now.
This new technology sounds very scary, actually. Okay, let's move on then. Lyndon, Airbnbs, HMOs, flats.
Great, fine, thank you. How is the service managing waste and recycling for Airbnb properties, HMOs, flats, where residents may not be aware of the local systems and rubbish is often left out and segregated? I'm finding that with some Airbnbs in my ward. It's a problem because they simply clear the house or the flat and all the rubbish is just dumped outside. and it's a problem for us as a council. Yeah, I don't know what you can do about that.
Thanks, Councillor. Do you mind if I pick them up as two separate answers? Because I think we've got
Sure,
two.
yeah.
Airbnbs are actually sort of commercial entities as far as workplace recycling is concerned. So in reality, they shouldn't be putting waste out into our domestic waste system. So what should happen is they should have a commercial waste contract and engage with us or other commercial off-takers who would have to tell them what collection system what the collection system is, when to put things out, what goes in what bag. But ultimately, that's not domestic waste if it's produced by somebody else not living in their own house, if you like. Guess a little bit difficult when you've got the resident lives in an Airbnb and they're renting out a room or something. But ultimately, if the resident's living there, they should really know what the domestic system is. So as far as Airbnb is concerned, our bit is just sort of, we don't, there isn't a central register of them. They can pop up anywhere, and you're right. The first thing we know about it is when there's a wrong bag out on the wrong week or with the wrong stuff in it, which is very much a problem which ends up at the council's door rather than the Airbnb's owner's door. So identification of an Airbnb, thereafter we can sort of knock doors or go and sort of write to them and ask them, do they have sort of appropriate waste handling arrangements in place? But it's about finding them in the first place, really. So if you've got them, send them through to us and we can pick them up and start addressing them. Flats and HMOs are sort of slightly different problem on the basis they are sort of domestic waste. They are just sort of transient tenants, if you like. So we have an engagement plan for those, and it varies on the property type, really. So there are, some fairly big student areas which have, tenants which come in every September-ish. They're around for up to 12 months and gone again. So we know roughly which areas they go in. They know roughly what time the year they turn up. So we've got a sort of a target engagement process where we'll do sort of paperwork. We'll do social media. We'll do in-person visits. All with a view just trying to get in front of those people and give them information on how to use our recycling systems. And generally, they're using our curbside system. So in some cases, it's making sure they've got the right caddies, the right bags, and then knowing what goes in each of them and which days to put them out. Flats are a bit different because they've more often than not they've got some sort of communal wheel bin. We tend to find that actually they're pretty good at putting stuff into sort of communal black bins, but not necessarily good at separating it. And without sort of giving too long-winded an answer, I think that's an issue nationally. You get into the point where some sort of residents who live in flats literally don't have space within their properties to be able to separate things. And that's that's not unique to Swansea. That's just an issue in that type of property everywhere. So some of the national studies have found you just got to try and make the system as simple, as easy to use as possible. So make sure bin stores are in a convenient position. So as opposed to being out round the back of the building in an awkward dark compound, try and put recycling stations out the front where residents who have just got one glass jar or something and not necessarily space to separate can walk out on their way to the shop or the office and use almost an on-the-go type of recycling container. I'm also conscious that there's so much council can do, but there's also going to be some sort of fairly large national changes in legislation coming up in the next couple of years. So these problems haven't been solved nationally in the last sort of decade, but there might be some other sort of legislative levers which come along and make our lives easier to improve to improve the behaviours or recycling habits of people living in flats.
I seem to recall this legislation coming forward to register Airbnbs. I thought that was happening under Welsh Government. I may be wrong.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Living in the waste world, sorry, might not be something I necessarily picked up on. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but they don't require planning. And of course, if you get planning for HMO, you insist on having refuse storage area. But that doesn't apply with Airbnbs because they just pop. I've got some in my ward as well. But yeah, okay, we'll take that on board. You okay with that, Lyndon? Yeah.
Right. No, fine. Thank you for that, and the useful advice with the Airbnbs, because it is a problem for us as a council, you know, if we can help.
Okay, Mary, did you want to follow up on this? Has your question been answered?
Well, yeah, it has actually about the education of people, and as I wasn't aware that it was commercial waste, because obviously when you think about it, it's a business, and yes, they're registered, I presume, for business rates, so that's the reason that we don't include it as domestic. But I did actually say when we were doing the pre-questions about the camping sites, caravan sites. We know maybe they have a different commercial waste collector, but at the end of the day, maybe they do have the council, and there again, you don't get people recycling because it's just easy to put it in one bag and put it in one of those big bins. But can I make a comment about flats? The multi-storey flats, they've got a chute. Well, obviously they don't want to recycle, because the easiest thing is to go out on the landing and push it down the chute. So these are our own multi-storey blocks. I thought it was a really good idea what Matt said about putting stations out the front door as you pass in them. But in reality, we haven't done it. So I'm wondering if there is anything in the pipeline that we are looking to do it for our own high-rise flats, or flats that, you know, people just, well, put it down a chute and don't have to, in their mind, recycle. Thank you.
We have engaged with our colleagues in housing, and sort of some of the city centre flats, as an example, we have blocked the chutes just to make sure sort of people don't use them. So if there are still any blocks with chutes, they haven't come to sort of our attention sort of first and foremost of the big problem ones, if you like. But you know, at some point, you know, be worthwhile engaging them. So if you want to send us an email which ones they are, we can pick it up with our housing colleagues and see what we can do between us to improve recycling behaviours.
Sorry, it was just a general question. I haven't got a specific. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. And picking up your point about caravan parks, we aren't the people who regulate sort of whether people comply with workplace recycling laws. It's Natural Resources Wales. So if they're our commercial customers, we would insist they follow our the code of practice and separation requirements. That said, there might be other waste operators out there who are less scrupulous than us and don't check that the code of practice is being followed, in which case it's actually NRW who are the enforcement body for those bits of legislation.
Okay, I'm just wondering whether how many Airbnbs actually register for commercial rates. Yeah. Yeah.
We do have a couple, but only a couple.
I know, I thought that was the case. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions on this particular thing? We've been very thorough, I think, in our questioning. So thank you very much for coming along and answering those questions. And I'm going to move on to the next item, which is item 8, which is scrutiny of cabinet member portfolio responsibilities, fly tipping, reduction and enforcement. You again, Cyril. And you've got Rachel with you, Francis, and Jeremy supporting you as well.
Yes, thanks again, Chair, for inviting me and my members, officers. I'm not going to go through the report. I think we'll go straight into questions and answers. Don't want to take up your precious time.
Okay, we have quite a lot of questions for you, so
exactly.
Hopefully we'll cover all the bases. So I'll start off with the given the high number of incidents but relatively few fixed penalty notices and prosecutions, what more can be done to improve evidence gathering and successful enforcement? Who's going to come first?
I think I'll start off, but you know, this is where I will have to defer to my esteemed colleagues
Francis
a bit more, to Francis and Jeremy. And I think, you know, I'm very conscious that for the size of Swansea, our resources are limited. And there is an area where, you know, and the cabinet members mentioned it to me, where we have, you know, the report says, you know, 2,500 instances of, say, just a fly tip inside now, and then the corresponding number of prosecutions, you'd say, well, is low regarding that. And Jeremy and I have had a conversation about the amount of evidence that is then passed through to the team, and it's then I think I'm going to hand over to Fran to explain when we get that evidence from the team what we then do with it to ensure that if we are going to take a prosecution, it is a successful prosecution, so we're not wasting money. But do I think there's an area of improvement given the numbers that Jeremy's given to me? I think the answer is yes. But I think we just need to identify, as Jeremy and Fran to think, what are those areas of improvement that we can see to up our prosecution success rate?
Hans?
Thank you. Basic understanding is that fly tipping, as many of you may know, is a criminal offence.
Yeah.
Therefore, in order to take a criminal prosecution, which is indictable, as in somebody can actually be put into custody and subsequently prison on conviction, or up to or above a £50,000 fine, we have to ensure as a council that the evidence that we provide via the investigations that we carry out and then the subsequent checks that are done are without doubt watertight in order to get a successful prosecution. So the issue is that we try to ensure that where the fly tipping team go out to do their investigation, they take before they look at the waste photographs so that we can understand where the location is, what type of waste it is, and then subsequently with the removal of the waste to ensure that if there is evidence available, that we can proceed in the most necessary and proportionate manner. Ultimately, if it is large scale, up to a certain percentage large scale fly tipping, that we are the body that should be investigating as well, due to the fact that NRW again take over prosecutions on huge scales. We have to have sufficient evidence before we can proceed for a fixed penalty notice or prosecution.
Okay, I noticed there's a 100% increase in FPNs for dog fouling from last time we had you in front of us. That's a massive improvement.
Again, it's a resource issue within the team.
And again, given the fact that Plough Cloak's pulled up about 14 different examples from the football fields in Cumberland Park only a couple of days ago, you can imagine it is quite a big area of concern. So how effective are these as deterrents, and do we have repeat offenders? I assume we won't have repeat offenders, but do we?
I'm really, really pleased to give you this information. To date, we have no record of repeat offenders for fly tipping. So
it's like they're just more careful.
Yeah, if they put as much effort into getting rid of it that as they do to doing it right, I think it would be far easier on everybody's eye in communities.
So they are quite effective then in terms as a deterrent.
Absolutely, along with the promotions that we do to continuously advise people that the traditional white van person, white van man, flatbed tipper, the general person that comes through needs to be an authorised waste carrier, and they are going to provide you with the necessary the necessary paperwork to ensure that you as a householder then don't subsequently become liable under the householder duty of care for the waste that you've indiscriminately given.
Yeah, because the big issue is people just dumping stuff on the streets. It's not always the white van carriers. It's just the casual deposit of waste, isn't it? Yeah, and you can't always prove who did it. No.
And there you go. Unfortunately, a sofa, a chair, a mattress, a bed base doesn't come with "I live at."
Unfortunately not. But there is also, I mean, you need evidence for an FPN. So at what stage do you decide an FPN is not appropriate and we should be taking them to court? Is that the volume of waste you decide that, or?
The idea is that each case is looked at upon its own merits. It can be the environmental factor, it can be the type of waste, but yes, a great deal of thought is given to how to best tackle. If I can give an example, if you have a business that is continuously fly tipping, then that would be a direct prosecution. Whereas if you had somebody that was just taking their waste to a local lay-by on one occasion, then that would be more likely to be a fixed penalty. However, I do have to say at this point that a fixed penalty is a precursor to a prosecution. The evidence that has to be there for the fixed penalty to be issued, should that fixed penalty not be issued, the individual or business has declined the opportunity to take responsibility, to accept liability for this criminal offence, and therefore will proceed to prosecution under the original legislation. We do at Waste Enforcement, well, Swansea Council, the legislation is not because you didn't pay your fixed penalty. The prosecution is for the original offence that you refuse to accept responsibility for.
Okay, I've got a few follow-up questions online. So, Mike White.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, looking obviously the scale of the work that's got to be carried out, and obviously the size of Swansea, it's a tremendous task that you're trying to cope with. Do you feel it would be beneficial if you had additional staff, because at the moment there's only one for the report, one full-time person and two part-time members of staff? Do you think this would obviously be able to cover a bigger area, and obviously and take up more FPN notices to combat the ongoing problem?
Oh, Councillor White, thank you so much. The answer, I love that question. The answer is no. I do not think we've got appropriate resources to deal with the level of ambition that, you know, I can see, you know, from yourselves, and also from the data. And I think it's that we must be led by the data and the evidence, and what is it we're seeking to achieve. And, you know, we want a clean and beautiful Swansea. And, you know, we know as well, you know, I'm speak on behalf of Jeremy now, we know his team want to see more action as well. So in terms of improving staff morale, community morale, we want to be able to do more. And with the resources we've got currently, and also the whole range of things that they enforce on, so it's fly tipping, dog fouling, litter, section 46 of the waste notices, no, there's a whole raft of things which the team do, and therefore we can't do everything at once. And, you know, and we recognise that. So, yeah, I'd love some more resources.
I'm sure the committee will support you in that, and I'm sure the cabinet members made note of that for next time you have a budget meeting, Cyril.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for allowing me to come in. I totally agree with what my head of service is saying, Rachel, here. And with no disrespect, I know Fran and a team are under so much pressure, and I agree they are understaffed. I totally will be taking it to our Budget Star Chamber on the recommendations from this committee. And I would like to put on record big thank you to Fran and her team, and also Jeremy's team, who go out collecting and looking for the evidence.
Yeah, absolutely. You've totally backed that up. Matthew, do you want to come in on supplementary?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I have to reiterate, yeah, fly tipping is a blight in our communities and our countryside. I would like, I think it'd be important for members if we had a process, if Fran could give us a process to who finds the evidence. Is the evidence passed to the investigated officer? Does that have to be done then with a statement because they found the evidence? Where it goes, at what point is there maybe a doorstep caution? At what point is somebody invited in for a PACE interview? You know, so there's a process so we can understand maybe. I appreciate, you know, given what has just been said with resource, it is, you know, terribly under-resourced for a city the size of Swansea. But it would, I think I would be interested in the process for Swansea, how we get to a point where either we're going to decide it's a fixed penalty or it's just a case filed to legal and a prosecution in court.
I suspect there's a chain of evidence situation as well in terms of this. Yeah, fine.
We're very fortunate in so much as the way that the service is set up is we've moved on to digital recognition and recording for the evidence that is actually found. So what will happen in a normal day, and there is a flowchart process available. It's been presented before, I believe, Jeremy, with regards to how we work together in order to get the waste investigated, removed, and then the subsequent action after that. But very, very briefly, usually what is called a service request will come in through the contact centre. It's then disseminated to the operational teams. They go out, they will photograph the evidence in situ. They will then examine the evidence with the tablets that they use. They photograph that. That is then sent on a continuous basis throughout the day, recorded with our the in-house systems. That then is subsequently investigated by an enforcement officer who will then decide the most necessary and appropriate action in regards to the waste and the evidence that has been submitted. On occasions, it can be domestic waste that could be possibly at the end of a street. And we can look at that as small-scale fly tipping. We could look at that as littering. We could look at that as a statutory notice. So we would look to prevent the ongoing problems by way of positive action within communities rather than the time involved. We would look for a system that deals with the problem in the community. I don't wish to say the wrong thing, but I'm looking to say it's the little hits make the big wins in communities. If we can get areas closed down, boulders put in, CCTV ultimately would be ideal. We don't have the resource for that as yet, but the barriers, and particularly with the CWAT team and Jeremy's team, is if we can clean areas up, they are less likely to be part of the broken window system. Cleaner, safer, greener. What starts off as a little lane that becomes overgrown can become an area of antisocial behaviour with all sorts of knock-on effect. But to answer the question is it's reported by members of the public or through monitoring. It comes through to us, and the enforcement team will then decide the most appropriate and necessary form of action to prevent ongoing issues.
Okay, Matthew.
Yeah, I think, waste attracts waste, doesn't it? I think that's the old saying, and it's certainly right. Yeah, I was just interested, like, is a pace interviews a regular occurrence within the authority, or is it usually down to like FPNs, and do you pace interview for fixed penalty notices, or is it just like a caution?
We don't currently, for fixed penalties, offer pace interviews. However, should they then evolve into prosecution files, then again, it would be down to individual experienced officers to make the decision as to whether or not a pace interview is required. 9 times out of 10, in particular cases that we have due to be in court, we offer individuals in for pace interviews and we are ignored.
Okay, Matthew, do you want to move on to your questions now?
Yeah, obviously the just trying to find what I wrote. Sorry, I'll get it here now. Obviously, the authority have a number of sort of tools in the armory to deal with fly tipping. Some local authorities try and actively seize vehicles, which is obviously a massive deterrent. And I appreciate that does take resource as well and collaborative working with the police force. Is that something that the authority is looking at, or is that something the authority has managed to do at this time?
We have very successfully previously, when resource was a little bit more flexible, carried out stop and searches with the police and have issued fixed penalty notices for duty of care. On several occasions, police have then been able to issue road traffic fixed penalties or action with regards to the vehicle that's actually on the road as well.
Yeah, I think what I was getting at, sorry, Fran, what I was getting at is if we know the vehicle's being commissioned in a fly tip and we've got proof that the vehicle has been used in dumping a load of bags, have we as an authority gone and seized that vehicle and impounded it, whilst then we go and interview the obviously the register keeper or the person we think has been driving?
The total honest answer is no, we have never actually done that. We have requested seizure of vehicles upon conviction of a fly tipping offence. But as for the ability to be out and actively, with the appropriate legislation being in place, go out to target vehicles. Again, the word target defines the legal implication there. Under RIPA, no, we haven't, is the answer.
Okay. Did you want to ask about section 33(1)(a), Matthew, as well?
Yeah, sorry, you'll be sick of me now, sorry.
No, it's fine. No, you're sick of me.
Obviously, we have touched on it. The fixed penalty notice is a great way of dealing with small scale fly tipping. The guidance, I think, says that it should be around 8 to 10 bags and no more, and it should be domestic waste only. So if it's commercial waste, it should be dealt with differently. I've noticed we've issued 5 fixed penalties, I think 3 paid, 2 prosecutions, and a number of fixed penalties for householder duty of care. Do we feel the fixed penalty is helping us deal with cases quicker?
Yes, they do deal with the problem at the time. They're a lot, as previously mentioned in the report, these are one-time, one-off offences for the householder duty of care. The issue that we have is the illegal waste transfer businesses that will offer a service for 50 quid to take everything away and then just dump it further up the street. Those are the ones that we need to target. Unfortunately, if a householder doesn't have the information as to who took the waste away, the householder then becomes liable, and we cannot take that any further with regards to vehicle seizure or prosecution because they don't have the information on the person that took their waste away. So rather than doing nothing, the fixed penalty then differs back to the householder who failed in their duty of care.
Okay,
Yeah, and
sorry,
as you mentioned earlier, Fran, I think all authorities are doing a lot to try and publicise the fact of householders' responsibility when it comes to duty of care as well. So the more we can do there to let householders know, the better.
Can I just add there, Chair, sorry, to preempt a question that may come up, the social media that we have within the Waste Management Department are about every fortnight putting on Facebook and various other platforms, reminding householders of their duty of care in regards to managing their waste from the garden, the garage clearance and everything else. And just to confirm, I have written it on my hand here. It's the last 2 campaigns that we've done in association with Keep Wales Tidy were on the 30th of August and the 8th of September. So they are up to date with getting that message out there.
Certainly, I've seen requests on social media where someone says, can someone take such waste? Registered licence holders only, so it is getting through to people. Yeah, sorry, Peter, I should have brought you in earlier. Yeah.
Thank you. You start the report with the 3 E's, yeah, and you've just touched on it now with the social media posting and stuff like that. Now, as you recall, a couple of months ago, I asked, well, I don't know whether I asked you or whether I asked the cabinet member the question about examples of how you'd displayed successful prosecutions on the social media. And it took about 3 bites to get, an answer from the successful prosecution, in the fact that we didn't actually have any. What it led to was saying that we thought that the messaging on the social media was a bit light touch. Lots of messages come out onto the Swansea Recycles page or something like that. Comes out, and we sometimes see up to 3 a day, like take care with this or do that. It's all very nicey, and I suppose we're going on the education bit there, aren't we? Yeah. But there wasn't really any line of actually saying of consequence if you don't. It's all sort of, it's a massive carrot but no stick. So I do think that messaging is important. Would it be, obviously a change doesn't happen overnight, if we could try just 1 or 2, if you don't do this, there's a because when I walk around the sort of Westminster Council area, it is on the lamppost. If you put your bins out on the wrong day, there's a £2,500 fine. These are your bin days. But there's no such. It's all very nice, isn't it?
Okay.
But could we look at a change? Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I had this conversation, with Fran when we're putting this together. So, I've come from another authority, and when we had a successful prosecution, it was all over our social media platforms, and not just the waste one. It was on our headline front and centre, because it shows A, the council's taking action, and B, and the response you then get back. We also used to, if we had a significant amount of fly tipping and we didn't have the evidence in there, we'd again be publicising this, saying, look what's going on. So I think there is something, and this is a conversation again I had with Jeremy, the communications, that strategy, that takes resource, it takes planning. If I'm honest, it probably is an area for improvement for us across our disciplines. But I think it's something which, I'd be keen to do. And if you'd said to me, could I assess effectiveness of what I did in the previous council? No, I can't. There didn't seem to be a correlation between our increase in our comms and engagement on naming, shaming, promoting. We're going to be more rigorous, and stuff dropping off. But what it did buy was more support from the public for the work we were trying to do.
Okay. Right, moving on. Sue, hotspots.
From time to time.
Jeremy.
Good afternoon, Councillor. I've been sitting here very patiently to answer your question, so I'm delighted to have the opportunity to do so. Thank you. The hotspots it's a combination on how they're identified. We monitor them through repeated reports from residents, members particularly, very important in that process. Partnerships have been mentioned earlier on with other groups, businesses, and also the officer knowledge. We've got a lot of experienced officers who know the hidey holes and the places where this appears. The list, it's a live document, which the sites are removed and new ones are added as may be appropriate depending on what the proactive monitoring regimes are. And then we can use that then to analyse the frequency of the incidents in specific areas and the type of waste that's dumped there, and helps us to deal with emerging trends as well.
Can I also ask you the deterrents that are in place? Do you think they're effective? Barriers and what have you?
Yes, we do. And I think we've got some quite clear evidence that supports that. They've significantly reduced the fly tipping incidents in those known areas, and we've actually removed some of those hotspots from the reporting as a result of it. 5 fly tipping hotspots were identified and physical measures were installed to help discourage fly tipping, and they include the permanent signage, the cleansing teams in conjunction with Keep Wales Tidy, mesh signage, boulders, vegetation clearance, and that's something that we've been encouraging through the CWAT teams as well. Barriers of restricted vehicle access, and the signage has increased awareness of the enforcement and the penalties, and it goes towards what Peter was saying as well, which is around the fact that people can visibly see. And I'll give you an example, is the B4560, which is the old Carmarthen Road that runs from the top of the Days roundabout, for want of a better term, down towards the Forest Park. that road has got a lay-by on it, and for years there was fly tipping in there. It had a litter bin in it, which for us, somebody mentioned rubbish attracts rubbish. It's litter attracts litter. It's the same horse, different jockey. We removed the litter bin to start with, and that caused a reduction. But then we saw fly tipping start to increase. So what we did is with highways as well, we did a load of work of clearing that out, took away any opportunity for waste disposal there. And you'll see there now there is permanent signage there that says, this is what we did, and now there isn't any. And it's what we feel again, and I'll fall on, you know, what Rachel was saying as well around the fact that can we prove that that has had a massive impact in that area? In a sole single place, yes. But for us, the fact that nobody has fly tipped there since we've done that identifies to us that there's almost a shame in it. And if we've got the signs that are saying this used to be a fly tipping hotspot, if another van is seen there tipping, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some self-policing within the residential area as well. So we do think that it's effective, and we're currently and consistently assessing additional locations for similar interventions and working with local stakeholders around that. For us, it's around improving the visibility and making sure that illegal dumping is more difficult.
Okay. Lyndon, you've got questions on data and trends and technology.
Great. Thank you. Are there any notable changes in the types and scale of fly tipping over recent years? And how is the data on fly tipping incidents and enforcement used to inform strategy and resource allocation?
I think we're going to give a joint response on this one from a cleansing perspective and then also from the enforcement side of things. For us, I think it's been widely reported there has been an overall increase in the number of fly tipping incidents, although it's considered to be relatively stable. We did see a spike of around 20% over the last couple of years, but we also think this was potentially down to improved reporting and visibility. So when you're looking at the 3 E's, that's going to prompt us to get more information and make it more visible, which has helped us respond more quickly and allocate resources more efficiently. What I would say is, though, from a cleansing perspective and from a fly tipping team removal perspective, I feel there's improvement available to us within the use of digital systems to be able to record and work more efficiently. A good example is we have been known to remove what we think is fly tipping from the side of the road, and it actually turns out the resident had paid for it to be taken away as part of a paid collection by the waste service. So there's a clear piece of work to be done there, and you were pleased to know that we've been offered to be included in the digital systems that Waste are going to be implementing with their in-cab services, and we intend to apply similar systems, well actually the same system, but more directly related to street scene and cleansing operations in our vehicles, and particularly with the fly tipping teams as well. So it will show a synergy between the service areas to work collaboratively. That will also help us with looking at changes in scale or particular types and working out trends as well. So the answer is, at the moment, we have a base system in place, but there is room for improvement, and we are currently working on it.
Yeah. Do you know, has there been an increase in a particular type of fly tipping, though?
Sorry, if I can come in there, a bit of a tag team going on here, is the increase that we have recorded is with regards to household waste, the hard plastics, the garage clearance kind of stuff, the furniture, metal, those sort of things. We have seen an increase in year on year since 2022.
Okay, thanks. The other, shall I go on to the next question?
Yes, please, Lyndon. Yes, please.
Yeah, Peter. Yeah, has there been any progress or innovation in camera use since 2022? And are there any new approaches or other technologies being considered?
Yes, the issue with regards to cameras is ongoing. We're looking at working with, well, we're meeting with NRW on Thursday with regards to the more effective use, more robust use of CCTV and reinvestigating the areas of RIPA that may be supportive of the work that we do. The issue, as I've mentioned before, with regards to CCTV is the cameras are there, the criminals are in place, they know what they're looking for. They will either destroy, remove, or just completely obliterate any work that we do with putting the cameras there. We need to look at more effective cameras, ones that aren't continuously monitored physically by being in a place regularly. People kind of switch on that something's happening. So we would need to look at Wi-Fi controlled sort of cameras, look at investing in those. But more importantly, whilst we can actually use the cameras effectively, and I believe that Councillor Peter May has actually been party to where the use of a CCTV camera was successful, it is the resource to go through the evidence that is actually collected. Again, it's a pressure on the team where they could be, the time elsewhere is then subsequently significantly reduced.
By coincidence, Peter May wants to come in, but succinctly, Peter, please.
Yeah, I will be succinct this time. Thank you. I won't abuse my co-option. What we had was we spent some money out of the community budget. It was a cheap and nasty camera. We got a prosecution, which the fine was more an FPN, which was more than the camera itself. And then the camera got nicked. So, but it paid for itself. That was the main thing. We made a profit on that one. Well, I'm actually asking two strands, really. First of all, you say for any covert cameras that you need a magistrate's order, which really means they're not covert anymore because you've gone to apply the magistrate's take it to public hearing, which defeats the object of the exercise. And what resources, as far as cameras, do the department have at the moment? Like, what models do you have? How many do you have? What sort of a stock have we got?
I think we might need that bit in writing, actually, because we could be here for some time on that bit.
The issue with regards to having the resource is to do anything with them is limited. I think we've got one that's intact at the moment and could be deployed if we had the resource to do it. Again, we are looking at community engagement to say, hey, have you got any information on this vehicle via your Ring doorbell? So that's part of community engagement that we feel is important, and the understanding from a legal perspective, witness statements as we take that footage, etc., to move forward. So it doesn't have to be a solely local authority responsibility. We can engage.
Does a magistrate's order have to be in a hearing? Can't the magistrate just sign an order? Yeah, it doesn't have to be a hearing, does it?
I refer to Adrian here. We've only done a few, but yes, to give clarity on the RIPA process, it's a process that you have to go through that has to be done at a magistrate and authorised by a magistrate. It's not, as far as I'm aware, open information because it's under the regulation of Investigatory Powers Act. So it's not common knowledge, hence the covert. However, there is a lot of information that needs to be put into there that it doesn't cause problems for public intrusion, etc., etc. And the magistrates are really quite tight about authorising it. We have done it and we can do it. The resource to do it is, again, not there.
Okay, so now we've mentioned resource. Cyril.
Yeah, just going back on what Fran just said, I think the public doorbells. I know of 2 definite prosecutions using doorbells in the Arford area, and it was brilliant. Yeah. But it would be nice if we could have some other covert means. But I think what I'm trying to say as well is residents could help us.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of incidents up in Town Hill in my ward where the resident is seeing it, But when our officers go and ask for a statement, they're afraid of repercussions,
Yeah.
sadly.
I've got CCTV, but unfortunately it doesn't point at the litter bin where people keep fly tipping near me, unfortunately. But it'd be useful if it did. I know. Okay, let's move on. Mike, public engagement.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to obviously, how are we measuring success really through the 3 E's process? I know that I'm grateful for the team because I have requested in some parts of my ward where we have got some persistent offenders who obviously are not complying with the issue of putting out their waste and that on collection days, and then it does cause an issue of fly tipping because the animals and the seagulls get at the bags. Have you got any sort of systems for key performance indicators to so we can measure the actual success of the issue with the education side of with the promotion team?
Rachel?
Thanks, Councillor Wright. I think this is where, when we look at the data, we have to be clear which one are we tackling of the particular areas that the team have got responsibility for. So say if we took domestic waste compliance, for example, so people putting out the right waste on the right day, in the right way, recycling everything. So that's our section 46 powers of the enforcement team. Obviously, that could be, we can monitor that one from crew feedback, just from doing visual inspections out on the street, and also then the number of reports we get of non-compliance and what we then do to follow it up. Fly tipping obviously is through the number of incidents that Jeremy's team are asked to pick up, or that we're asking to. But do I say we have a robust PI suite? I'm going to be honest, no, we don't. I think we could do better. And I think that's something which we can look towards, in terms of next year, in terms of particularly on Fran's and mine side, in terms of that, but I'll just be honest, one of my PIs in my old council was for the number of fly tipping incidents where evidence was presented, what was the proportion sent for prosecution. So I had that as a standard PI for my environmental health team was responsible for that. And guess what? Once we introduced a PI in, we had more stuff coming through. So there was something about the behaviour. So I do think we can get better on our PIs. In terms of if you're doing an engagement, as I said earlier, it's very difficult to get cause and effect of that constant, but I think there is something about us having an agreed suite of data by which we're monitoring the entire success of the whole strategy, or the services that we're working to. And I think, I'm being honest, I just think, being new and coming in, I think it is an area that I'd like to work on.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, if I could just follow up my second question, and it's about raising awareness of residents. How effectively do we work, perhaps if there are issues, perhaps within our own properties, and of course with private rented properties in liaison with the landlord to make sure their tenants adhere to the tenancy agreements? Have we got systems where we work in partnership there? And also, as well, about advising them about not using unlicensed waste carriers. I know we touched on that earlier on.
Yeah, thank you. Following on from what Rachel has said with regards to the being able to quantify the success of things, I do feel that we work very, very closely with public health and housing in regards to landlords of HMOs, privately rented properties, those that are registered, etc. We also work with social landlords, all again in token gestures, with a view to trying to improve the understanding of people and their engagement with what we have to do. I think one of the positives that we need to remember is where we take action by way of statutory notice, the problem is usually resolved, and that was evidenced in the report that was provided earlier, in so much as we're issuing 500 odd statutory notices a year for domestic properties, and only 15 then have then subsequently breached. And we've dealt with that by way of the fixed penalty. We have to, again, look at the resource that is available for education and engagement, and then subsequently the enforcement action. The idea of what we do is to get people to do it right in the first place. Give them enough information, give them enough resource in order to do it right in the first place, and therefore negate any excuse for not being able to comply to what is a fairly simple request.
Okay. Should we move on then? Mary Jones on resources and capacity.
Yeah, it's strange this, because when I left yesterday, I didn't have a question, but when I looked today, I did.
I know.
So there we are. Has enforcement capacity changed since 2022? And you've touched on this a little bit. Are there opportunities for cross-departmental working or external funding to enhance enforcement and prevention? And I must say, seeing Jeremy and the cabinet member, it's like deja vu, because we met this morning.
Yeah, so I think I'm not aware that the enforcement capacity has changed since 2022. I think, yes, there are opportunities for cross-departmental and working. And in fact, let's be, I'll be candid with the restructure. And, it's even more important that there's interdepartmental working between myself, Tracy and Jeremy, given that there used to be one head of service and now over two. But actually, it's the interdepartmental working, as we talked about. It's about HMOs. It's about licensing. People that with environmental health on the private landlords and their compliance. We need legal fully on board. So it's a whole system approach internally, but also externally as well. And that's really important. So whilst we've got our own housing stock, we need to engage with other RSLs, private landlords, NRW key players in this, in terms of making businesses aware of their responsibilities to be compliant and who they should or should not be given their waste to. Regards to external funding, this isn't one, I'm not aware that Welsh Government weren't ones for particularly giving out lots of grants in this area. So I'll allow, obviously Jeremy and Fran from their knowledge of what's happened in Swansea, but I can speak from experience in my old role back in the southeast. It wasn't an area where we were that successful in sourcing additional amounts of funding, because it's very much just seen as it's a council job. Get on with it.
Yeah. Okay. Adam.
What are the targets for reducing fly tipping?
We don't have specific council targets for reducing fly tipping. Okay.
Okay. But on that note, are there any ways that we can compare our fly tipping, sort of how we're doing to other local authorities? And are there ways that we can take best practice from other local authorities? Thank you.
Jeremy?
Yes, thank you for this. Currently, we work, as all local authorities do in Wales, alongside Keep Wales Tidy, Ceri Cymru, around carrying out an environmental monitoring system, currently known as LEAMS, which stands for Local Environment Audit and Management Systems. It's very dated in its approach, because what it does is it looks, we carry out assessments of our own performance, so marking our own homework for want of a better term, but we follow a specific process in assessing street cleanliness, and fly tipping comes within that. But it's only assessing a specific stretch of a road that gets reported, and then it's benchmarked against other local authorities. And what happens is KWT come in unannounced and do their own inspection of a selection of streets within Swansea and areas on the same criteria. Now, what's happened over the last 5 or 6 years is Swansea has routinely been in the top percentile of authorities in Wales as far as street cleanliness is concerned. And in the latest report, we dropped to what was considered an unacceptable standard by dropping below other local authorities. But if you put it into context, the percentage of streets that were considered to be acceptable as far as their cleanliness are concerned had dropped from 90% to 87%. So a 3 percentile drop in measuring a 50-metre stretch of some randomly selected streets is clearly not an effective way of measuring cleanliness and effectiveness of dealing with fly tipping. So to address this, KWT are coming out with a new system called Geospatial Litter Analysis, or GLAN. And our officers within cleansing are actually on a working group with Keep Wales Tidy to help develop that system. And it's going to be far more intuitive in its way of assessing. It's going to use heat maps, potential use of digital technology and drones to look at litter analysis, and also helping us identify, manage, maintain and monitor hotspots as well. So there are new systems coming in place to assist us with that. And I'm cautious on applying PIs, if I'm honest, because sometimes they can do more difficulty than they can actually have any benefit. You know, a PI for me needs to drive a meaningful action versus a strategic goal, as opposed to just saying, and this is no disrespect to the question, but you know, what's the target for reducing fly tipping? Well, I would say, well, what do you want within that target? You know, I would be looking at, well, we want to reduce it in rural areas of this particular nature. We want to seek to understand, we've seen an increase in domestic fly tipping, which can't be enforced against because it hasn't got a name and address written on it. So what's the strategy for how we will look at making a reduction of that particular area? So it's incredibly complex given something that we consider to be so straightforward, but those systems are going to help us improve benchmarking and performance going forward, and then will allow us to measure versus other authorities, but also year-on-year improvement.
And just in terms of going back to that, I think where I said there's no performance target locally, there's also no performance framework nationally. So whilst, you know, Welsh Government have an ambition, they used to have a litter and fly tipping strategy, but now it's just more like an ambition, a bit of a framework within which we operate. But unlike recycling, for example, there's a very clear direction and strategy behind that. We're not working to, you know, a really driven national agenda where it's, you know, we're going to have these targets and drive out this behaviour through this activity. It is very much one that's in the partnership space, and particularly on the litter agenda, you know, the local community are critical in that, aren't they, with all their clear ups and everything, and that's fantastic work, and that's part of it. And that's why I think the enforcement world, it's which problem are we solving? Is it fly tipping? Is it litter? Is it dog fouling on beaches? Is it waste on the wrong day? Because each of those problems has a very different solution that we then need to tackle across our partners and the system within which we work.
Okay, Adam, you can.
No, thank you for the answer. I appreciate there's no like one performance indicator on reduction in fly tipping, so I do appreciate just to hear how you're processing it and how you could explain that to me. So thank you for that. Just as a separate point, I appreciate you being very generous with your time. With regards to sort of data managing and data collection, how are you just ensuring that all of the data is accurately recorded? Just because in the report I noticed that my ward was sort of split into three, the three previous wards that it was before I was a councillor, and I do also appreciate that an example of best practice was raised from my ward, I believe, in this constituency, but there were no incidents reported for Upper Lougher, Lower Lougher, or Kingsbridge, and anybody who knows that I will be, you know, I do frequently raise two of my hotspots with you. I know, so just how are those reflected in the work that you're doing to reduce fly tipping that weren't necessarily reflected in the report that we were given? Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really interesting observation, and thank you for raising it, because it highlights that the current system that we have in relation to reporting is dated. The services rely on what's known as the FLARE system, which is an environmental health for the reporting. So that's what receives either the reports from residents ringing into the call centre or are captured through the web forms that are submitted. that system is coming to the end of its natural life, and the various areas of the authority are moving on to its replacement. Ourselves and colleagues on waste are not doing so, and I alluded to that new digital system earlier on, being provided by another contractor. And within that, we're hoping to link that to our reporting database for, like Matthew mentioned, the Swansea accounts are being reported through the website, and again through either into the contact centre or to our own frontline facing services, which we have it listed as an important function to gain greater detail, but also accuracy in the reporting information. Because without that starting point of that data, we're already on a difficult footing. So it's part of the ongoing digital improvement programme that's already being looked at.
Okay, thank you. Right, no more questions? So, oh, hang on, we've got Matthew.
Me again, sorry, Chair.
Yeah, go on.
Just a quick one. I noticed, obviously, given the breakdown in wards, I noticed Uplands is 393 instances. Now, Rachel touched upon this earlier. I think there's a bit of confusion sometimes between fly tipping and waste that's wrongly presented as well. And are we capturing that in our fly tipping figures as wrongly capturing it then? Because I know Uplands is, and I'm not blaming any individual groups, but heavily studented and so on. So are we capturing maybe waste that's been presented for collection wrongly as fly tipping rather than wrongly presented waste under section 46?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really interesting question, and that's been sort of asked regularly from Welsh Government to ensure that the records that we keep provide a clear delineation between fly-tipped waste and waste that is out incorrectly, as in wrong day, wrong place, wrong beat, wrong bag. So the incidents with regards to specific fly tipping in the Uplands ward are in relation to a fridge, a sofa, a bed base, a chair, that are recorded within the many call-ins, etc. So yes, there is a clear delineation between black bag waste being placed out incorrectly and then subsequently items that are fly tipped. And as Jeremy touched upon earlier, improvements need to be made in regards to beds, bases, sofas, fridges, etc., that have been put out for a bulky waste collection and inadvertently collected as fly tipping.
Okay. Right. Okay. So as we have no more questions, can I thank you all for very much? We've been very thorough. I think lots and lots of questions have been very helpful and very useful. And we will write to you with any outstanding issues, particularly on the confidential issues around cost as well. So thank you for that. Thank you. So thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Cheers. And committee. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to item 9, which is the Scrutiny Annual Report, which is in front of you. This report is to be presented to Council. Does anyone have any questions or points on this report at all? Can I therefore ask that you are happy to accept it and to forward it on to the Council? I'm going to take that. Yes, thank you. So then item 10, membership of scrutiny panels and working groups. You'll see the report has got a number of members in terms of the various inquiry panels and working groups, and also members who have volunteered to be conveners. We're going to suggest, I think it was the inquiry panel and was it the other one, and the taxi services one. We're going to defer that to the next meeting because we think we need more members on both of those, and we're going to seek 4 members. But we're also asking you to approve 3 additions to the climate change and nature performance panel, which is Adam Davis, Mike Day and Joe Hale. So can I ask you, with those slight changes, that we can agree this report as well? Adam, sorry. You say yes. Okay, thank you. And then item 11, which is going to be the scrutiny work programme, which is again in front of you. The next meeting is on the 14th of October. and we're looking at the Independent Drugs Commission report, which can be quite an interesting one, I think, and the follow-up on the co-production working group. And we're going to be deferring the item on the Children and Young People's Rights Scheme progress report to December, just because trying to get the meetings balanced out a bit better as part of that as well. Also, there's mentioned that we've had a number of queries from the website from members of the public, all of which were referred, 6 altogether, 3 went to the complaints team and 3 to the cabinet members, which were responded to by those. So there's nothing come through the website which we feel we need to put before committee or the panels at this stage. So we're happy with that. Note the scrutiny letters in item 12 and also the date and time of upcoming scrutiny panel working group meetings, which is item 13. So unless anybody has anything else, I'm going to declare the meeting closed, and thank you very much for attending for a very productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.